Hi everyone, thanks for joining us this evening for our webinar focusing on the role of surgeons working with MSF projects around the world. I would like, and we would like as MSF Australia, to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation as the traditional custodians of the land where I am today. This land always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I want to pay my respects, our respect, to their elders, past, present and future, for they hold the memories, traditions, culture and hopes of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples of Australia. Also take this opportunity to say kia ora to our colleagues joining from Aotearoa, New Zealand. I would also like to acknowledge the tragic killing of our MSF colleagues in the past 2 weeks. 3 of our colleagues were killed while working in the Tigray province of Ethiopia on Thursday the 24th. This closely followed another attack in the Central African Republic in which 1 person was killed and 3 injured. The people injured included 2 patients and an MSF staff member. No words can truly convey all our sadness, shock and outrage against these horrific attacks, nor will it soothe the loss and suffering of their families and loved ones, to whom we relay our deepest sympathy and condolences. Hi, my name's Jodie Cornish and I'm a Recruitment and Training Officer with MSF Australia. I'm pleased this evening to be joined by Royal Australasian College of Surgeons Global Health Forum Representative, Head of Global Health, Philippa Nicholson. Hi Philippa, thanks for joining us.
Hi Jodie, thank you and good evening all and welcome to our Global Health Section members and fellows. I'm very pleased to join with MSF today to share information about their important work. And I welcome you all to one of our first sessions on the Global Health section, where we take the opportunity to share information with partners, health professionals and fellows. RACS Global Health perceives access to healthcare as a human right, and we align our aims with Sustainable Development Goal 3, good health and wellbeing. I'm aware some of our RACS Global Health volunteers and fellows have had the opportunity to deploy with MSF, and I welcome you to share your experiences on our Global Health Section Teams platform. As you'll also be aware, James O'Keefe is our International Engagement Coordinator and he's online tonight. He is always happy to help reach out and provide more information about global health, and you can contact him on our Global Health Section Teams platform. With that, I'll hand over back to you, Jodie, to hear about the critical work of MSF.
Thanks, Philippa. This webinar aims to provide surgeons with information about MSF field placements and outline our recruitment processes. In MSF projects around the world, there are urgent needs for general surgeons with recent caesarean experience, orthopaedic and trauma surgeons, and reconstructive or plastic surgeons. Surgeons are most often placed in Palestine, Yemen, Pakistan, Syria, Nigeria, Iraq, DRC, Afghanistan, Haiti, CAR, Chad and Cameroon, as well as other countries. Fellows with 2 years experience need to be available for a minimum of 8 weeks in the field, ideally available up to 4 months for their first placement. 8 weeks in the field does not include travel there and back or any quarantine required. Today, we're joined by Professor Herwig Drobets, an experienced MSF field worker. He's going to share a little bit about his placements with MSF to date. Welcome, Herwig.
Hello, thanks very much for having me, and welcome everyone who joined us tonight.
Thanks. At the end of our webinar, we will take questions, so please send through any general questions as the session progresses for Philippa, Herwig or myself on YouTube, the MSF website or our Facebook page. Please note we're unable to answer any questions about your individual suitability online. Again, thank you so much for joining us, Herwig. Perhaps a good place to start might be to tell everyone a little bit about yourself, your current role, and what made you decide to work with MSF.
So you might not have guessed it from my true blue Australian accent, but I'm actually originally not from Australia. I'm one of these European trained trauma surgeons, came to Australia in 2004 for a fellowship, and then did all the motions and did my exam and passed my fellowship, and now I'm working as an orthopedic surgeon. I originally just came for 1 year, but somehow I never bought a return ticket. Currently, I'm an orthopedic trauma surgeon, director of trauma in the Northern Rivers in Lismore Hospital, and my relationship with MSF started way back when I was a student. I heard a talk once in my first or second year as a student of somebody who just came back from an assignment, and I knew that's what I want to do. It's a bit of a cliche, but this guy just did a really good sales pitch. And then, with many people, career gets in the way, and family and other priorities. But in 2014, I joined MSF. I did the interview. They took me, and then they forgot about me. Didn't hear from them for a year or 2 years. I rang them again, and in 2018, I finally did my introduction days, and then went basically straight to my first mission to Syria, and have been going on a mission ever since. Once a year I go on a mission for about 2 months since then.
Thanks very much. Yeah, you have completed a few missions, so it'd be really nice to hear a little bit about each of those and what the day-to-day activities involved.
So there were. I was in Syria, which was acute, life-threatening surgery only. So we had lots of gunshot wounds, severe burns. So we're talking about 70% grade 3 burns. And we had lots of people who stepped on landmines. So it was basically, I was there for 6 weeks. We were on call for 6 weeks, and we only dealt with acute life-threatening situations. I also went to Gaza, and Gaza is different. In Gaza, you have about 6,000 young men who got shot in the legs, mostly lower extremities, and they all have open fractures, infections, skin defects. So it's not acute surgery, but what you do there is reconstructive surgery together with plastic surgeons and other orthopedic surgeons. So they are completely different, but both of them incredibly interesting and rewarding. In Gaza, you can sleep because you don't get called for emergency. In Syria, we slept when we could because it was obviously we couldn't plan anything.
They both sound incredibly challenging. How did your work here assist you in, and your skills assist you in your work there?
Well, I'm a trauma surgeon, so I've always had an affinity for trauma. And the European system is that you learn to stop the bleeding from wherever it comes. But obviously, mostly we deal with orthopedic trauma because that's just the most common trauma. So I always had an interest in trauma surgery, and that's all I do, and that's what I do in Lismore at the moment as well. I only do orthopedic trauma. So that does help when you deploy with MSF because 95% of all operations you do in MSF are acute surgery. So you don't really do planned operations. Except when you go into this reconstructive realm, but that's only just starting with MSF. Basically, it's acute surgery. So that obviously helped me a lot. I do prepare for that before I go on a mission. I assist my colleagues, I assist the surgeons, I assist an expat surgeon. So I do try to brush up my knowledge on laparotomies
and what sort of
Sorry?
And what sort of support does MSF provide you around those technical skills in what is quite a different environment, a low resource setting quite often?
So MSF is actually really good because first of all, there's guidelines for everything. You do have a guidebook and you do have a guideline for everything. So you never ever have to reinvent the wheel, and you also never ever should reinvent the wheel. There's a reason why there's guidelines for everything. Second, MSF offers courses. So there's a surgical course, which is once a year in Germany. MSF flies you there, they pay for it, and you learn how to deal with emergencies from head to toe with a forceps and a knife, basically, with basic instruments and ultra basic imaging, so basically just an X-ray, because that's all you have. MSF has a really good library and books specific to war surgery, and also there is a really good support with telehealth. So you're always 24/7. You can ask someone for help, and there's always somebody available. So you're never alone, even though you are sometimes alone in the field, but there's always somebody to help you.
And that's what we hear from a lot of field workers, just around the team, the MSF team. You're not alone. Can you talk us through what is it like working with the rest of the team? Who were the teams that you worked with alongside in Syria and Gaza?
So there's always two components. You have an expat team. So expats are people like me who go overseas for MSF, and it's always from all over the world. So in Syria, I worked with another surgeon from India, an anesthetist from Italy, from England, and an ED doctor from Canada. So it's a large expat group, and they're all throughout interesting, nice, usually very good doctors. And then you have a much larger group of national staff. So in Syria, we had 3 orthopedic and 3 general surgeons, national ones, and you have national nurses, and you have translators, and you have a lot of contact with the national population, and that's the real rewarding thing, because you get really close, you work close together, you have disasters together, you have crises together, you have successes together, and that's the most rewarding thing, really.
And were you able to, with those, which you explained the hours that you were working, but within that, what sort of teaching is there and opportunities for you with all the staff?
We tried to do regular teaching, so there were dedicated hours where we could do regular teaching, but then you also do a lot of teaching on the run, and a lot of teaching for the surgeons happened in theater. It is, I think, most important when you go away with MSF or with whatever humanitarian association you choose, that you don't go there to perform spectacular one-off operations. That's not the goal. What you should do is you go there to leave something sustainable behind, and that for a surgeon includes teaching skills they need and they can then use. So you don't teach endoscopy skills because nobody has an endoscope. But what I did, for example, we did flaps together. So we introduced gastrocnemius flaps for lower leg skin and soft tissue defects in Syria. And I don't have to do them. I've done a billion of them. But I took adamant care that I taught the surgeons so that they can do it when I'm gone. That's the most important thing. Things like this.
And what would you describe as the most challenging aspect of your MSF placements?
I always found it extremely rewarding. I never found it that challenging. It is challenging because you are way out of your comfort zone. But if you make a commitment that you are way out of your comfort zone, then that's okay. It is a completely foreign culture, so you need to be sure that you don't do anything silly from a culture point of view. For example, in Arab countries, it is often an absolute no-no to amputate. And even if a leg needs to be amputated, you just can't. So you need to know these things, otherwise you get in serious trouble. Obviously, it's also challenging to work with so many different people who you don't know and who you live together on a very, very sometimes cramped environment. So usually you share a room with somebody, you have a communal bathroom. That can be challenging, of course. And the hours, I never found that challenging. Yes, you work a lot, but you have nothing else to do. In Syria, we were not allowed to leave the compound. All we could do was play soccer if we didn't work, and read a book, and otherwise we worked. And because you don't have anything to do, somebody cooks for you, somebody makes up your room, everything is taken care of. You have so much more time to do other things besides working, way more than at home. Because there's always something I have to do at home.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Herwig. You did mention just then compounds, and I guess everyone listening might be interested in security and your experience of security on your placements with MSF.
So there is extensive security briefings. You learn a lot about security in your introduction days. So there's a whole day gets devoted to security, if I remember correctly. You learn what to do when you get abducted, where do you hide behind when you get shot at, all these things. You don't really want to then do in real life, but you learn about it. There's extensive security briefings in the mission, in the field. So in Syria, we had a panic room, and in Gaza, we had a bunker because there were bombings while I was there, where we had to stay in that bunker. And then you just get on with it. In Syria, we were not allowed to leave the compound. The compound was the hospital, which was walled, but the MSF does not do armed security guards, because MSF has the philosophy that we help everyone, and therefore no one is interested in attacking us, and that works really well. So there were gun fights every day outside the compound, and at the beginning you get really nervous and you hide under the bed and you lock your door, and after the fourth day it becomes part of the normal background noise. You get used to everything. Humans are extremely adaptable like this. But I never felt unsafe. Never ever was there a single situation where I felt unsafe. It can happen, of course, as we just heard from the tragic situation in Ethiopia, but it's a rare exception rather than the rule.
Yeah, thank you, Herwig. Just in relation to living and accommodation, what were the actual challenges that you felt there? You mentioned you didn't really feel like you had any challenges in the living situation. Was there any, or?
No, the challenges, no, it was just you get a bit jealous because there's technicians there, there's logisticians there, there's all other sorts of experts there who are non-medical, and they don't do on-call, and they have regular hours. So on the weekend they can sleep and they can party, and we could never participate. It's really sad. So we had lots of social outings, like we would do exercise together, we play soccer against the nationals. We had costume parties, and you need to have these outlets because some people are there for 6 months, and not being able to leave a hospital compound for 6 months, that can be quite draining. So you also need these kind of outlets, and that was not challenging, but it was sometimes you're jealous because they can party, you can't.
You're creative with your downtime and prepared for lockdown.
Yes,
prepared you well.
Yes.
So, Herwig, can you share how do you, when you finish a placement like that, come back to life in Australia, and how do you resettle here? Did you find any issues in resettling or utilise any support at all?
So MSF offers and does always a psychological follow-up. So you get called by a psychologist, and you also get called by a peer who is a fellow expat from the same country, who calls you and asks you about your experience and whether there is anything bad, good, anything you want to talk about, and so on. So that network is quite well organized. As for myself, I like to come back slow. It's not a good idea to be in Syria or Afghanistan or Gaza for 8 weeks, then fly home and then go working the next day. That doesn't work. You need to have some time. You need to have some holidays. You need to allow yourself to arrive, because what you do there is completely different to what we do here, and expectations and framework and everything is different, and you can't do it that seamless. When you go on a mission, it's the same. You can't do on-call on Sunday in your hospital and then fly to Afghanistan, but that's easier because usually it takes a week to get there anywhere, wherever you are with MSF, because it's quite adventurous to get there normally. So that's good, that gives you time to settle and get into the mood.
That slow transition sounds like good tips. What other advice would you give to somebody about preparing to go?
Think about carefully why you want to do it. Question your motives. I'm not saying I'm only doing it because I want to do meaningful immediate medicine. That's the main part, but I'm also, of course, doing it because it is an adventure. And MSF is the sexiest medical travel agency. They get us to places where nobody else can get us. But this should not the main motivation, because otherwise you will be disappointed. I do recommend to read one paper that's called Seven Sins of Humanitarian Medicine, or Humanitarianism. It's online available. You just Google it and you get a full version. And that's the one paper you should read, because that makes you think about your motivation and why you do it and what you shouldn't do. That's the most important thing. Don't do surgical safaris against the people. Otherwise, I read up on the country as much as I can, because you need to know the customs. Like, you don't want to amputate a leg when you shouldn't do it. And MSF is very good at that. They give you all the information. And then I update my emergency video library, because while there's most of the time good internet, you should also take everything on a stick or a hard drive, because you often don't have internet. And if you then want to look something up, then it becomes quite entertaining if you can't.
Thanks, Erwin. And I guess the last thing is I know that I was going to ask, are you going to work with MSF again? So I'll ask that. Are you going to work with MSF again?
Yes. Yes. I'm booked for a trip to Afghanistan in November. And I hope it happens. It's not. We'll see. I don't know. The political situation is a bit fluid, but I'm definitely going away either to Afghanistan or to Gaza if Afghanistan doesn't work. One of these places.
And just if you can sum up why you're doing that again.
It's the full package. It's meaningful, immediate medicine. It's extremely rewarding, from meeting new colleagues, patients, national staff, getting to learn about a country in depth in a short time, which normally is very difficult. It's an adventure, and you always learn about yourself. You learn a lot about yourself when you're out of your comfort zone. That's good. So it's the full package.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much for providing that insight into your field experiences. And if it sparked your interest, please head to our website and read some more. The criteria for surgeons is on our website, and they include, but are not limited to, 2 years work experience since obtaining your fellowship, experience in at least one of the following areas: general surgery, orthopaedic and trauma surgery, reconstructive or plastic surgery. And for general surgeons, you must have performed at least 8 cesarean sections during the past 2 years. You do need to be available for a minimum of 8 weeks. You need to be able to work autonomously in basic conditions and with limited materials and resources. You need a willingness to abide by MSF surgical protocols. And an asset certainly would be that you're available for 3 months in the field. Please refer to the website for the comprehensive list. To apply, you need to complete an application online and a skills assessment template on the MSF Australia website. Once we receive your application, it's technically assessed, and if you meet the criteria, you'll be invited to interview. Generally, that's within 4 weeks of applying. Following the interview, there are several other recruitment steps, including reference checks, medical and police checks, and successful completion of the MSF Welcome Days course. Once you're officially recruited to the pool of field workers, It may take a while to be matched with a placement and mobilised to the field, as there are many variables. However, as surgeons are an urgent need, we assume it would be within 3 months. All employment terms and conditions are outlined on the website, including pay rates and leave. A note about working in COVID times. Since COVID started, we have managed to bring all field workers safely back home. The biggest delay we've experienced was about 1 month for a field worker to return home. MSF does their absolute best to return you safely back to Australia or New Zealand. However, we cannot guarantee travel that will happen as planned. Main reason for the delays, obviously, are the caps on this side, which have been decreased again, and the quarantine booking in New Zealand, which is incredibly limited. We have, however, adopted a few strategies to help mitigate these, and MSF does bear the cost of quarantine. Now it's time for questions, and I can see a few have come through. It's Tom from Facebook for Professor Drobets. How do you organise your leave?
I'm extremely privileged because I have a really nice hospital and a really nice team. So I negotiate with the hospital that I can do 2 months of unpaid leave in one big block every year. And I can also extend it to take some, when I take some paid leave. So and I think that's quite easy to organize, because I think every hospital you can negotiate it as long as you do unpaid leave. That's not an issue. You need to talk to your colleagues though, so the department has to be happy, obviously. And my department is extremely understanding and extremely nice. We organize a locum when I'm away, and that makes it all very smooth.
Thanks. And there's one here for me. It says, my partner is a theatre nurse. Can we go together? Thanks for your question. MSF sends certainly on first placements. You always travel as a single person. There are very few positions for couples within MSF, and they're usually in secure contexts for long-term contracts. So whilst you could both apply, there would be no assurance that you would be placed together. Another one for you, Herwig, for Professor Drobets. What do you take with you each trip?
4 things. Bedside light, a small camping light which you can put on your bedside table, because they never have any bedside lights anywhere, and that just means you break your toes at night when you have to get up. So that's one thing. I take my Crocs for a fashion statement. They are important because you can get in and out fast if it has to be. I take a coffee machine, an AeroPress coffee machine. I'm not sponsored by AeroPress, but they are $30, make the best espresso, and I love coffee, so I need a good coffee every morning, and that helps me with that. And my skipping rope, because you need to do some exercise, otherwise you go bonkers. And the skipping rope allows me to do exercise in a very small, confined space, so I don't need a lot of space.
Great, thank you very much. Well, I think that's all the questions we have time for this evening. So MSF would like particularly to thank Rax and Philippa for joining us this evening and partnering for this webinar.
Thank you all, and good night.
And a particularly big thank you to you, Herwig, for sharing your experience with us this evening.
Thanks very much. Anybody who's interested can contact me at Lismore Base Hospital, of course.
You might be inundated now. Yeah, thank you very much. And to all of you out there, remember to head to our website if this has been inspiring for you. And thanks again for joining us this evening. Good night.